like from a global strategy perspective, thinking about how the decisions that you make in a campaign or whatever project you're doing, they go beyond what you think your customer needs, what you think you should be doing, and even within the country that you live in, you have to think about, okay, well, what do people in Asia want? What do people in South America want? How are we then taking this project and tearing it apart, looking at it holistically and figuring out how we start with the end in mind from a strategy perspective, and then looking at those work streams was really vital for me.
Welcome to another episode of the Intersection Podcast, brought to you by the Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business. I'm your host, Analisa Wade. I'm a second-year full-time MBA student here, and we're really excited to talk to you today with 3 students who, if you've been watching our episodes, you've already met, and we're going to talk about their summer internship experience. Welcome back. How does it feel?
Feels great. Feels good to be back in Atlanta, I'll tell you that much.
Does it feel like it's been, 3 months?
Flew by.
It honestly flew by. Yeah. I wish summer was a little longer.
Right.
Yeah. So in case you didn't watch our previous episodes, it would be great if you all just gave a run through of where you were at this summer, what you did, and maybe your favorite thing about your experience. Start with you, Janice.
Yeah, so I'm Janice Jean. I was at Dropbox this summer as a supply chain intern on the infrastructure supply chain team. So I was supporting our team with coming up with or establishing and determining the requirements and strategy for the next generation of their data servers to support the Dropbox platform. Wow. And I was remote this summer, so was in Atlanta for most of my time. But then I traveled to San Diego to meet the team, and then also the Bay Area for an intern summit that they hosted.
Wow, that sounds very exciting. What was your favorite thing about that?
Probably the offsite with the team. It was kind of halfway through the internship, so I hadn't met anyone in person yet, and it was really nice to just spend a few days together. We were on a boat. We were in the marina in San Diego. It was beautiful. So.
Wow, yeah. and you didn't take me. That's fine.
Sorry. That sounds so nice.
Yeah. Well, so what about you, Korin? What was your experience like?
Yes. So my name is Korin Carney. I'm a second-year MBA student here at Scheller, and I did my internship this summer with the Coca-Cola Company. I was a part of their global marketing team on both the Powerade side and the Fuse Tea side of the house. So I had 2 projects this summer, one that I was able to support and then one that I owned. The project that I owned with Fuse Tea was with an internal platform called T University. So taking the information and finding a way to create a digital engagement plan for internal employees to share information, knowledge. So anyone who was within the T category, I created an engagement plan so that they can collaborate with each other. And then the project that I was able to support with Powerade was helping them define their strategy and their scope for their partnership with U.S. Soccer.
Awesome. I have to ask, so Powerade or the tea? Like, what's your favorite drink?
Oh, so I'm a tea girl through and through. I love hot tea. But Coca-Cola owns so many different brands. I mean, from like the ginger ale, from Seagram ginger ale. I was always drinking ginger ale when I was there. I love Simply Lemonade, all the different flavors that they have. So yeah, I don't think they don't have anything that I wouldn't try.
You have to tell me a favorite though.
Favorite? Okay, I just tried it this summer. Have y'all ever had a Fresca?
Yeah,
of
course.
I loved the Fresca. That's my favorite now.
Zero cal, what are you talking about?
Exactly. I was like, wait a minute, this is good. And like, I'm not going to gain any weight on it. It was good. I really enjoyed the Fresca. That was my favorite.
That's awesome. And do you have a favorite thing that you experienced this summer?
Ooh, I'm going to show you.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Surprises.
Later.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Now to you, Trent.
I used to round it out. I am Trenton Gantt. I was with Nike this summer up in Memphis, Tennessee. So some might immediately think of Portland or Beaverton, Oregon, but I was at their North American logistics headquarters up in Memphis, Tennessee. They have roughly 6 primary distribution centers up there. And I was working with the last mile transportation team under their operations side of the house. And my project for the summer is really to build a predictive analytical model to help them better forecast certain outputs at a distribution center to help them utilize their trailer space better. So to help be better partners with UPS at the end of the day. So yeah. Cool. A lot of fun.
Very cool. You all landed some amazing internships. It sounds like you had a great experience. My first question is, was it what you expected? And if it was or wasn't, what didn't go as planned, or what did go exactly how you thought it would go? And we'll start with you, Trenton.
It did not go exactly as I planned. And I said because it's so interesting to think of Nike as such a fast, innovative, sexy company, right? But when you get down to logistics and supply chain, it's not exactly that. And they're transforming their entire business model over the last 6 years to really build a digital ecosystem. So what I mean by that is like a multi-node network across the United States, very similar to how Amazon does like fulfillment centers regionally to help you get products faster to you. They've begun that process. They've already got regional service centers in Dallas and LA, up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania to serve the Northeast. And so they're shifting to this more digital consumer first model, which is extremely exciting because their bread and butter is wholesale retail. And so shipping large volumes to known retailers like your Dick's, your JCPenney's, your Hibbett Sports, insert whatever wholesale retailer you want. But now that the focus is on, the consumer itself, instead of just a wholesale customer, they've had to really transform their business model in the last decade to really reflect that. And it's an exciting opportunity for growth at Nike with that, because they want to attract a lot of younger talent that is able to be flexible for like data analytics and then overarching strategy and aligning kind of those two together to really perform at the top notch that they know that they are. I mean, the number one sports brand in the world, so why not reflect that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the work that you were leading, is that what you thought you would be doing, or was it a little bit different?
Not necessarily. I was not given my project prior to the experience, so I think I was just kind of going in and just ready for whatever. And my manager was very clear about, hey, you've got a data analytic background, but also an operations background. Like my team is made up of very experienced operational individuals, and we want to kind of bridge that gap between the operations and the data analytics side. And I think just that concept did help me kind of mentally prepare for the work I would be doing. I didn't know exactly what it was at the beginning, but a lot of great help and a lot of great mentors at Nike helped me kind of, pave the way and then, deliver a good product for them. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. Korin, what about you?
So before I started my internship, I honestly didn't go into it with any particular expectations. You know how you have like the happy to be here syndrome?
Yeah.
Like I kind of had the happy to be here syndrome at first. But when I thought about what a role in global marketing would be, I thought I would be on a campaign that was like a global campaign versus me having to collaborate with a global team.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more about working with people who were not sitting right next to you or even in the same country as you. So my manager sat in Switzerland. One of my mentors was in Singapore, and then he moved to Dublin. And then my other mentor sat in Mexico City. So collaborating with all these different people, I didn't expect that. I thought I would be in the Coke office doing some sort of like campaign that would be pushed globally versus having to collaborate globally with people who their priorities are different than where it is that I'm sitting here in Atlanta. So that was super exciting. But then also, I guess I didn't expect, though I know Coca-Cola has been the partner for the Olympics since forever, I didn't know how much, like depending on the brand that you worked on, how much that penetrated across not only Coca-Cola as a company, but across sports, across different countries, like, and being able to have that experience and see, like, just with the different people that I worked in and rubbed elbows with. And I'm the kind of person where if you give me a pass to get into your building, I'm going to go and get on the elevator and press all the buttons and just kind of see who I meet while I'm there. And then just randomly talking to people about what they do and how the Olympics affects what it is that they're working on was really, really cool. So honestly, going into it, I was open to whatever experience I could have. So being able to collaborate with those different people across and around the world was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's a major call out, because I would have thought the exact same thing.
Same.
That I'm doing a global campaign. We're going to talk about like doing this and like it's just somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it was more about internally working with people.
Yeah.
How did you, one, have you ever done that before? And two, how did you manage like the time differences? Like that's major.
Yeah. So I've done product development when I worked in beauty. So I would work maybe like 11 a.m. to 6 and then get home and then start working again like around 8 p.m. because that's when China is awake. They're at work. They're messaging you, all the things. So I've done it. From the product development and like shipping and logistics, but from a global campaign perspective, I had never done that. And luckily, shout out to Microsoft's scheduling assistant. I could go and see like when people were available, what would work for them, what didn't work for them. And I networked down to the very last day that I was there, even having a conversation or trying to set up a conversation with someone who worked in Japan and trying to like coordinate those schedules. So having that technology to help was really beneficial, but there were moments where it was like, yeah, I have to have meetings with someone at 7 a.m. because that's when it's most convenient for everyone to speak to each other. But yeah, it was an experience. But I'm also like, this is what I'm here for. Like, it's an internship. Like, this is my priority. So whatever it is that I have to do, you know, I'll figure it out.
That's awesome. So if you're not using Microsoft Scheduler, you're missing out. You're missing out. That's great, though.
Not sponsored, though.
Yeah, not sponsored. Well, I am an ambassador. No, I'm kidding. Janice, how was your experience?
It was good. So I feel like the Dropbox, at least the recruiting team, did a really good job engaging like the hiring team and the hiring managers pretty early on in the process to scope out like what interns will be doing. So during the interview process, I kind of got a little like hint and taste of what my project would be. I just didn't realize how broad it would be. And like there wasn't like a detailed project plan, like, okay, you need to do this and accomplish this every single week. Mine was a bit more open-ended and it could be a little bit different for some of the other interns. But the title of my project was Elevating the Standard of Excellence for Supply Chain NPI. So then when I heard that, I was just like, what does that mean? But I mean, I talked to my hiring manager about it, and she's just like, you know, propose like what you want to do, and we'll go from there. So they gave me a lot of autonomy and creative freedom to kind of structure the project how I wanted it to be, as long as it kind of achieved the final like end goals. So, I mean, I had a lot of fun just like doing the research kind of and like learning a lot and then compiling all of that, distilling all of that into like insights, findings, and then sharing that with leadership. So it was fun.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. So what I liked is it seems like some of you got your like a description of this is what your project is going to be beforehand, but then I think you two, maybe you didn't really fully know like what you were going to be doing. So how did you tackle your project? Like you have 8 to 12 weeks. I'm not sure where everyone landed, but how did you go about saying, okay, this week I'm going to do this week I'm going to do that? What was your plan to do that? Korin, we'll start with you this time.
Okay.
Put you on the spot.
Well, luckily for me, my manager, when I first got there, he gave me a list of people that he wanted me to meet within the first 30, 60, 90 of my internship. So at the moment when I got that list, I didn't know that these were the people that I would be collaborating with ultimately on my projects and getting feedback from and being able to bounce ideas off of. But he said that he knew that they needed to create some sort of digital engagement plan for T University, but it was completely up to me to put together what that would look like. We met every week to kind of talk through, you know, my progress and what I'm thinking. I was able to kind of write out a document based off of what I think made sense. But he just kind of like you said, Janice, like I was given the autonomy to kind of just tackle it. And then on the Powerade US Soccer side for their Advanced Hydration Excellence Hub, with that project, it was a little bit more I had the opportunity to sit in on meetings and kind of hear what the customer and what the client, being US Soccer, what they needed. And then from there, kind of building a plan around what their needs were. Just to kind of give you guys some insight. And this is, and you can probably speak to this as well with working in sports. There's no definite way to be able to measure how players are hydrating themselves. So being able to work with the team to come up with the scope of what that would look like based off of US Soccer's needs, not only now, but in the future, as well as for youth players, was really the big ask there. So really taking that and moving backwards to take it apart to figure out, okay, what should we do next? Is what it is that they're saying that they're needing now in the future. Will that change? What will that look like from an innovation perspective? How can we solve their business need? So that was a little bit easier easier just because they're telling you what you need.
Yeah.
But for the T University project, I really was able to be creative, like Janice said, and really own that and get feedback along the way and be able to pitch that to the people internally and different internal stakeholders to say, this is what I'm thinking. How else can I incorporate you guys' feedback to add value so that when I'm gone, you all will actually use this. So.
Did you put yourself on a particular timeline, or how did you scope out the work for yourself on the one where you didn't really have as much direction?
Yeah, so I definitely made a timeline for myself. And along with the timeline, I made sure that I identified who it was that I needed to speak to, who was going to actually use this platform the most based off what they needed. I also networked internally, and I found people not only who just worked corporate on the brand management and marketing side, but bottlers, people who are actually creating the plastic that this is going to go into. I spoke to engineers, and they got to turn the machines on for me, and I got to see stuff spin around. I don't know what the words mean and what exactly all of it is, but being able to say, okay, this is dope. How can this digital engagement plan that I'm creating for you all, how can I make sure that what you need is also incorporated into this? So most of it was really getting with people and saying, okay, how can I make sure this adds value for you? And it is something that you'll actually use.
Wow. Talk about going above and beyond.
Yeah.
Glad I didn't have to compete with you. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah. Janice, what about you? How did you schedule everything
I was
out?
gonna say, very similar to you. At the beginning, I think my main goal was to learn about what does the NPI process, of new product introduction process, look like at Dropbox, and who's involved, who are the stakeholders involved, and how is supply chain involved, and how do they collaborate with all the different stakeholders. So it was a lot of networking, a lot of chatting to all the different stakeholders to get their perspective on what could be improved, what are they currently doing, what are the goals for the next cycle of NPI, and what do they want to achieve, and incorporating all of that feedback into my findings and recommendations for the end of my project. And then I think I had to be proactive and take initiative and come up with my project outline and structure as soon as possible. So just based on that, the feedback from the stakeholders, what should I work towards every single week, and create those milestones and weekly milestones for myself. And yeah, that was mainly it.
Yeah.
I think that just getting the insight from the stakeholders is really important, and feedback from my manager and mentor was really important. So the structure for my internship is that I have a manager, who's my hiring manager, and then a mentor, and then a peer mentor. So I had a lot of people to leverage if I had any questions pop up, and I was meeting with them weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, to go through my questions, and then we'll kind of check, does this make sense? Does the structure make sense? Does my approach and logic to these problems and my overall project make sense? So it was good to kind of bounce the ideas off of them to make sure that I was going in the right direction, and helping or coming up with something useful for the team to use by the end of my 12 weeks.
Yeah, that's good that they gave you that support system. You said you had a mentor, a peer mentor, and then your manager?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Trent, what about you?
I think a combination of both, from what Korin and Janice was mentioning. One, peer network. The Nike network is by far some of the best that I've been able to work with. They're very adamant about reaching out, networking. It was such a pillar for them because they wanted everyone to be inclusive, ask anyone from any different department, anything. So leveraging different people. But initially my manager was incredible. He, as soon as, I got to the team, hey, here's kind of the laid out timeline I want you on. Here are kind of the weekly meetings I want you to specifically go see and the people I want you to go meet, because I think they will really help you out with kind of your project. And then once kind of understanding the process flow of, the certain project I was working on, I kept asking the same questions of, what am I not asking? What are the questions I'm not asking? I might have, 5 questions for you that I think are appropriate for this project, but the people who have been here for, years and who know this stuff inside and out, I've only been there for, at that point, 9 days. So it's I don't know what I don't know. I made a lot of great connections that way, and it really helped shape and transform kind of the structure of my project. And then even having like a midway through check in, like my manager was very good at giving me autonomy and saying, hey, you decide what you want to do with this. Like, I think you could go this way, but also like, I want something new that we have not yet seen before. It was also interesting to see that they've tried to tackle the same problem like 2 or 3 times prior. And then even with like the insights and analytics team, and they're actually hopefully taking some of the insights that I pass along and building a more robust model that's going to help like a lot of the analysts and a lot of the other operation individuals truly perform at their best when it comes to this very specific project. But, kind of breaking down a glide path, understanding your timeline, meeting the right people, networking with the right people, I think is kind of the through line I'm seeing between both of these stories from Korin and Janice and myself as well. I mean, Nike is very passionate about storytelling and networking. They love that. So yeah.
Yeah, networking seems like a common theme amongst the 3 of you. It was the same at Microsoft. And I would like to know, how did you balance networking, getting your project done, but also networking for your project and then networking separately? Like, how were you able to manage all that? I know I struggled. So if anyone has a better recipe than me, I'd love to hear it. Anyone can start.
I'll go ahead real quick. My a few things. So one, Georgia Tech has a very strong presence at Nike, which is awesome. So I was already able to leverage some of the individuals who've already come from our MBA program at Nike who are in the Memphis office. So that was great. I got a chance to play golf with them a bunch, have drinks, go out, have lunches, whatnot. So that was a great asset. My older brother worked at a investment firm in Seattle way back when, and one of the guys that he worked with was a principal procurement individual at Nike, but he was over on the West Coast. So I had a chance to kind of meet someone on the West Coast and kind of get his idea of, how Nike was at that state, his journey through Nike, understanding that. So that was kind of a different layer of it. And then lastly, any of the peers within Last Mile, like any of the different teams that make up the business unit of Last Mile was incredible. And then just walk around the office saying hey to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, Miss Coleman, shout out Miss Coleman. She was the front desk security lady. I saw her all the time. She gave me all the recommendations on where to go. So like Gus's Fried Chicken, Gibson's Donuts, all the good things. So yeah, just, I think different layers, different levels of your networking skill, kind of leveraging your own personal network as well, I think really helps.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Korin, I'd love to hear your story. I really want to know, did you really go to every single floor and just like see who you could meet? Like, what's your networking strategy?
I did. Well, I will say that even though you may be able to get to a floor, it doesn't mean that you can get on the floor. So like you'll get off the elevator and there'll be doors and like you'll have to scan in and it's like, no, girl, intern denied. So I'm like, all right, cool. Well, then I'll go down to 19 and then 18. So I did do that. But I will also say Coke did a really great job of making sure that we had trainings that were scheduled for the grad students to be able to like get away for like a day and learn change management. So anything that was scheduled for us outside of the network we were doing on our own, I took as an opportunity to network and just learn as much as I can about people. And then from there, see if what it was that they did could help me with my project. So another thing that I learned at Coca-Cola is like you'll see someone's title and you think you'll know what they do. And then you talk to them and it's nothing like what you thought. So that was really cool because it was truly just me being curious, like, hey, what do you do? Are you on North America or are you on a global team? Is there someone else who you think should help me? I mean, I've even networked with people on accident because I spelled their name wrong on Teams. And I'm like, hey, do you know who this is? And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But once you find it out, let me know and I'll ask someone and then they'll ask someone and then they'll get back to you. So being able to like participate in some of the intern programs that they have for us, making sure that I'm engaging with it and like raising my hand, asking questions, but then also networking with people from other schools. Because I feel like we forget that too.
Yeah.
Like we always want to network up, but I was also networking across. Like I met people from like schools that I had never heard of, but it was cool because they were able to offer me some sort of value, whether it was the project that we worked on together because we were doing some sort of intern workshop or something. So networking across and also networking up was cool. But then I was also like meeting up with the IT people who help us when things on our computer go wrong. I was making friends with them too.
Yeah.
So anyone that I came in contact with, I just took it as an opportunity to be curious and like kind of pick their brains and go from there. So I was trying to make friends with everybody while pushing buttons.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's a great strategy. We'll just title the episode that, Push Buttons
Pushing
and Network.
buttons.
Yeah.
See what happens.
I love that. Janice, I know you were remote. So
Yeah.
how was that? Like your networking experience, trying to network with people from home. Like how was that going?
Yeah, I think the first step that I took was just trying to meet everyone on the team. Like my team wasn't that big. It's maybe 16 to 18 people. So I tried to my goal was to meet everyone like at least once before the end of my internship. And then the structure of my project was good in that like at the beginning, I was encouraged to meet all the different stakeholders. And then my mentor gave me a very long list. So I set up coffee chats with all of them. And then by the end of the coffee chats, I'll be like, do you have any recommendations for like anyone else I should talk to? Either to like anyone interesting like in the AI space, because like that's big in the tech industry now, and especially in like infrastructure and hardware supply chain. So asking if they had any recommendations for anyone at Dropbox that I should meet, and then like it would just be a cycle. So I'd always have another name to meet up with like every single week, and then the recruiting team. So the internship program is managed by the emerging talent team. So they manage like folks in the early career stages, young professionals, and they would host sessions like social sessions and workshops so that the interns and like full-timers, either IC1 or IC2, to socialize, network, get to know each other. So that happened like every couple weeks throughout the 12 weeks that I was there. So I got to meet all the interns. I think there were maybe like 60 to 70 of us in total. And that was really nice. So like you said, like kind of getting the opportunity to coffee chat with like leadership, the rest of your team, but also like other interns that you wouldn't necessarily work with on a day-to-day, but they're in the same stage of life as you. They're at school trying to learn as much as possible. So it's really good to kind of chat with all of them.
Yeah, that's really cool. Switching gears here a little bit, I want to know, how did what you did at Georgia Tech in your first year kind of apply over the summer? Like what skills did you use? What course, only one course, do you feel like helped you the most? Trent looks like he's so ready to answer this question. So while y'all think about it, he's ready. Go ahead.
Absolutely. It's a few courses. Am I allowed to say that?
Fine.
Okay.
Name a few.
So actually, I already forget the course name. What's the one that we had with that we did SQL in?
MIR?
Yeah,
Information
MIR, Managing Information Technologies. That course introduced me to SQL, which I used day in, day out at Nike. Also, business analytics for managers brought me back into R, and then coding, doing regression analysis, different sort of analysis with that. If I didn't have those classes, and I'm coming from an undergraduate in engineering, but we didn't do any sort of coding in that aspect. We did some other languages. If I didn't have that, I would have been completely lost on what I would have done this summer.
Wow.
And so very thankful for Georgia Tech it is a STEM MBA. I think people forget that. But at Georgia Tech, obviously, it's this huge engineering school. And to have those classes truly was, a blessing in disguise. I was like, I'll just take them just to take them. Obviously, one's kind of required, but business analytics for managers was an elective, and I'm very fortunate that I took that class. Very fortunate.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Are you taking data viz, by the way?
I am taking data viz. Make it look pretty. Make it look pretty.
I keep adding it and dropping it. I'm just gonna add it back.
Just keep it. Just keep it. It's asynchronous. Why not?
Okay. Korin, what about you?
So in my spring semester, I took all strategy classes. I took tech strategy, I took global strategy, I took sustainability for business strategy.
Wow.
And that was extremely helpful for me because I was able to figure out and define work streams for the different projects that I was working on. So in defining the scope of whatever project you're going to do, you first have to really think about, okay, well, at the end of all of this, because I'm also a project manager. I did project management before I came into school. And the way that my brain works is I work backwards. So I start with the end goal in mind and then take it apart from there. And then looking at strategy, really being able to define the why of what you're doing, and then the scope of what that looks like and the different work streams that come off of it was really, really helpful for me. But then also looking at like like from a global strategy perspective, think about how the decisions that you make in a campaign or whatever project you're doing, they go beyond what you think your customer needs, what you think you should be doing, and even within the country that you live in, you have to think about, okay, well, what do people in Asia want? What do people in South America want? Even if you think about like Coca-Cola, right? The Coca-Cola in a can is different than the Mexican Coke that you can get in a glass. They taste different. That cane sugar hits different. So thinking about that, it's like, okay, how are we then taking this project and tearing it apart, looking at it holistically and figuring out how we start with the end in mind from a strategy perspective, and then looking at those work streams was really vital for me.
I'm really excited for you to sidebar to bring all this to our case competition that we're doing. That sounds wonderful. So regurgitate that information. I love that.
Corinne's out here just
she's
gassing
like,
Coke up.
I
Man.
know.
Oh my goodness.
No need to ask if you're interested in
No
going.
kidding.
Yeah.
Right.
Coke or Pepsi, girl? You tell me.
We'll see.
Oh my gosh.
Tricky.
Oh.
So
No, I'm just kidding.
you're saying all the strategy courses that you took.
Yeah, it challenged me to really think critically about the way that I solve problems. And then even at the end of our internship, we had to do an intern showcase where we were giving like the old school trifold boards that you use at the science.
We
had to
really?
do that.
No.
Yes, no presentations, no nothing. Like we got a trifold board, and from there you had to use that as your visualization of what you did this summer. I wish I could show y'all, but y'all know confidential information.
Yeah.
But it was really cool because my mentor said, think of your headline. Think about what it is that you've done this summer and find a way to take all of that and put it into a sentence as far as what you learned. And for me, it was learning how to enable change and drive innovation in a complex global organization. That's literally what I did. So even thinking about that from a marketing perspective is thinking about how you can encapsulate your goal into one sentence that everyone can understand, but then it is also easy to repeat. That's another thing that I learned both in strategy classes and then with Coke. Whatever strategy you put forward, it should be easy for someone to repeat it. It shouldn't be so difficult and so complex that if we want to revisit this in a later time, we can't do it because either it's the strategy is old or whatever. Like it should just be something so that when you hand it to someone else, they know what to do with it.
I love that. That was great.
Dude,
Very well
Corinne's out
said.
here just-
I know.
I'm pumped up. I'm ready to go. Let's go back to strategy classes.
No further questions. So Janice, you can't say any strategy courses were your favorite. Pick
darn.
something else. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I took supply chain modeling, and this is not a class, but I was a sustainability fellow last year. So like more consulting based. I was working with a client based in Atlanta on a sustainability focused project. But I agree, just like the frameworks and like approaches that we learned in class and in my fellowship allowed me to kind of approach such a broad like problem statement with like some kind of logic, allowing me to follow that and kind of like scope the project a little bit better throughout my 12 weeks. But yeah, I feel like you hit everything like on the nail.
Yeah, but I also want to take supply chain classes. Like I want to learn about everything, y'all.
So the supply chain class is really helpful, just like giving you an overall perspective on like the purpose of supply chain, how that's in like why is that so important in a lot of companies? Like for instance, at Dropbox, you wouldn't expect that to have a supply chain team. So why is it so important, and how do they work with the rest of the organization and the operations team to deliver the product to satisfy its customers and things like that? So highly recommend. And the supply chain class like kind of gave me like my background's in chemical engineering, so I have absolutely zero business like education. My jobs were more business focused, but I do think having that foundation in supply chain, taking that class was really important to kind of just like set the stage, allow me to think of all the different aspects and facets of operations that I wouldn't typically come to mind. And then, kind of connecting all the dots and everything, especially in such an operations focused role. Yeah.
Wow. Very impressed. So glad that I'm on this side and not on your side. Because
we can take turns.
No. That's okay.
Wait, you work for Microsoft? That's
excuse
so
me?
Tell us
crazy.
Tell us
Tell us
a
about
little bit more
Microsoft.
about your experience, please.
I feel like I heard that once or twice that she was working for Microsoft.
So,
but I didn't know that.
in short, Microsoft is great. Hopefully they'll have me back one day. And it was awesome.
All
Glad
right.
the technology is being utilized by Coke. That's good to hear.
SharePoint and Viva Engage.
There we go. All of those
Oh my
things.
gosh.
I do have just a couple more questions. So let's talk about challenge. We've heard all great things so far about your internships, but what's one challenge you encountered over the summer? Let's be honest. And how did you overcome it? Korin, we're starting with you.
Okay. So one of the challenges that I can think of was with the Powerade U.S. Soccer partnership with the Powerade Hydration Excellence Hub was there were a lot of meetings that happened before I started my internship. So I'm not sure about you guys, but part of that project, I was kind of dropped in the beginning of it, but then kind of sort of after some of those initial conversations had happened. And shout out to Val. Val was my manager for that project. Hey, Val. She had a conversation with the soccer team in Mexico, and they were talking about different needs that they feel like were not being met, that they needed to implement for their players. But Val speaks Spanish. The person that she was speaking to speaks Spanish. I speak a little Spanish, but dialects are different. And I had to download the Voice AI app to then go through and translate some things for me so that I could take notes and then take it back to Val and tell her what I think. I was not expecting that. But when you're on a global team, you have to do what you have to do. Sometimes you can't wait for someone to go and translate, do an entire 30-minute transcript for you in English just because you speak English. I had to go on the App Store and figure out something that worked for me that allowed me to still be able to extract the value from that conversation and then provide a recommendation to my team. I couldn't wait. So that was a challenge for me, but then it was also really cool because I got to use something I'd never used before and get that translated for me. So that was a challenge, but then I also was able to learn a new tool. So that was cool.
That's very cool. You leverage a lot of technology during your internship.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. I don't think Microsoft has a voice translate thing, so you're safe. It's fine.
Not yet.
Right.
Yeah, well,
right.
well.
If y'all are listening.
Janice, let's go to you this time.
Yeah. So I don't know if I mentioned this before, but my project had two different parts. The first part was kind of like research and strategy, and the second part was documentation and standardization of the process, templates, just the way that the supply chain team does things. So I mean, one of the main challenges for my project was kind of like getting all the information for my research. There's a lot of, and I think you might know this, but like with AI, the AI growth and acceleration, things are changing so rapidly. There's always like new hardware, new products, CPUs, GPUs being released into the market. So like everything is kind of up in the air. Like things could change almost instantly, overnight once those products are released. So understanding market dynamics, the demand dynamics, supply dynamics, which customers are really driving those demands is really complicated. And the information that I had like early on was just like Q1 2024. And by the end of this year, everything could completely change. So it was a challenge to kind of like project into the future, especially knowing that all of those things were going to happen later this year, to make sure that my recommendations and insights would still be useful for leadership. But I had the opportunity to chat with a lot of like business intelligence and insight teams that like Dropbox collaborates with, or the Dropbox supply chain team uses to get their insights, because they're professionals and experts in the field, and they have some insider knowledge perhaps, and shared that with me. So at least I could kind of like tailor my recommendations a little bit more. But yeah, just like it's a very interesting space, but everything is happening so fast and things change so quickly that it's just hard to kind of give such a long-term recommendation or a future recommendation without the risk of like that all changing by the end of the year.
I second everything that you said. So fast-paced, quick story. I think it was my first or second day. There's a new product that they were launching. They have like this big event called Build every year. And I started doing the research and like learning about it. And then like in a couple of days, I couldn't find anything on it. Product name changed. So like literally, it changes literally At a second, I'm like, I can't. Are we deprecating it? What's going on? No, the name has changed. Everything has changed. Trent, what about you?
I think mine's a little more simplified than these two ladies here. Mine was just trying to find the right data to mine and understand so it can reflect the process that you're trying to understand and the problem you're trying to solve. I think one of the biggest challenges that I had clearly was, I think, finding the right data that's captured on the right database servers, understanding where those are at, how to incorporate it in your model, and then how to effectively, use that data, automate it day in and day out so you're not copying and pasting and doing all this thing. I did use Excel quite a bit. And so I wish there were some more, and there were more advanced methods that I just was not able to do via some licenses that I just weren't allowed to acquire just because, hey, I'm an intern. They're not going to spend, $5,000 on some guy who's going to work here for 2 months and then won't be here again. So, I kind of was given enough to chew on and start with. And then as kind of the problems or as the process went along and as the problem was getting more advanced, I needed more data. It's kind of a classic need more data to really capture all these different nuances. And it really showed kind of how unique each distribution center is. So I used one as a case study because each Nike distribution center has a very specific purpose. And so one does mainly, if not only, digital sales. It's all they do, is all they spit out. Another one would be what we call an omni-channel, where it does high volume wholesale stuff mixed with digital sales. So, one, what they call waves, how they kind of wave orders through the distribution centers. They could have, on a Monday, they could say, hey, we're going to do, 50,000 units today. 20,000 that's going to come from wholesale. It's going to be like one item, but a ton of it. The other 30 could be 30 individual orders. And it's like how they structure it and how they wave that. So you need a lot of data across a bunch of different databases to help capture kind of those strategies and those little nuances so you can better predict and forecast the output of that distribution center. And so having, fortunately, once again, networking, talking to people who have been in this sort of scenario and in this fold for quite a while, they were saying, hey, have you tried this database or this table? Have you connected that? Have you talked to this guy? He might own a dashboard that connects to this. So it was simply just more data and how to get more data and how to clean it correctly and how to, produce it enough to where your recommendation makes sense. So that to me was the biggest challenge, was finding the right data.
Yeah, that sounds intense. It's been so interesting hearing your stories about your internship journey. So this is the first time we're doing this. I asked you all to bring one thing that would really give a story about your internship experience. So if you could just get that thing handy. Now, keep in mind that there's going to be some viewers that are listening and they can't see the item. So be sure to describe it and then tell your story about what it is. Are y'all ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to start with Janice this time.
Yes. So I have brought a backpack with the Dropbox logo. So I don't know if y'all know this, but I like really small bags. So I couldn't even fit a laptop in my last bag. And then I stuffed too much stuff in it and the zipper broke and the bag broke. So I'm glad that Dropbox gave me a backpack.
That's really nice too.
Yeah.
Name brand.
Right. The North Face. But yeah.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
Fancy. But so I got this backpack when I was in San Francisco for the Emerging Talent Intern Summit. So it's an annual summit that they host for interns during the summer, typically late July or early August. And it's just a week full of networking, socials, and professional development workshops. So Dropbox has five or six different values, and there's usually a few workshops focused on those values and how do you own your career, how do you work well in a team, and all of that kind of stuff. So it was a great time also to be back in the neighborhood that I lived in for 3 years before coming to Scheller. So overall, great time, great vibes. I met very lovely people and hung out with a few of them after the summit. So overall, great experience. And I'm glad that I got a backpack out of it.
Yeah,
Good
that
to
sounds like you
have.
had a really awesome experience at Dropbox. Before we wrap up with you, can you, one, say, is it a place that you would want to go back to? And then two, what would you recommend or what advice do you have for someone who might be interested in interning at Dropbox?
Yeah, I would definitely love to go back to Dropbox. Love working remote. But overall, the team culture values are very aligned to what I'm looking for in a company. And if anyone's interested in interning or even working full-time at Dropbox, highly recommend just, being very genuine and preparing very well for your interviews. They might have just been my interviewers, but they ask really difficult questions and very broad questions. So they really want to learn about your opinion, the way that you approach problems. So I recommend just practicing like scenario-based questions and really having a solid opinion on, like, for instance, they'll ask, like, for supply chain, they asked about like macroeconomics, global trade, and what was my opinion on what the biggest problem is right now to solve. So having a question, like an answer for that kind of question with, backup like points, just like really kind of solidifying your opinion is really important because they want to know that you're curious, you're willing to learn, and that you're kind of like well-versed in the space that you're trying to recruit for.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you, Janice. Korin?
All right, guys.
Is it the trifold?
No, I
Okay,
couldn't
okay.
bring the
No, I'm kidding.
trifold.
Confidential
I
information.
wish.
Yeah. I didn't know if it was like a...
They literally took all of our boards and we put them in a pile afterwards. And we were like, dang, we worked so hard and now our board's being smushed under piles of other boards.
No.
I hope they're recycling it.
Yeah. right. They are. So Coke actually had happy hours for everyone internally every other week. And every brand got to host their own happy hour. This happy hour that I went to actually was right before the Olympic Games started. And they had people who came to draw characters of us as if we were in Paris on the street.
Let's see
And
it.
this is my caricature.
That looks good.
That is so nice.
This is
Hey, look at the earrings going too.
Yeah.
Oh, let's
Right?
go.
This is my little caricature and my gold medal on my first place for, I don't know, running a 4x1.
I was also, would you win it in?
Yeah, shot put,
Wow.
disc.
That is very nice.
So this is me. This is really cool. It was a really, really cool happy hour that they set up for us. It was awesome. They have French 75s there. We love a French 75. So yeah, this is my drawing. This is me.
Yeah,
Instead
we'll
of
have to
Prosecco,
get
it was Fresca. That's what it was.
Actually, I don't know what it is, but it was good.
Okay.
We'll have to get a picture of that for those that are listening, and maybe we can put it on like the site or something. That would be really cool.
Cool.
At first, I thought that was going to be like, do you know those photos, or not photos, drawings, like people get at the side of the street and then like they emphasize certain
Yes,
parts of
those
your face?
are hilarious.
I
And I
thought that
was
was
nervous
gonna be
about
it.
that too. I really was. And funny story, I was at a networking event and ended up cracking my tooth on a quesadilla.
On a quesadilla?
On a quesadilla.
On a
Those things
quesadilla.
are soft.
Oh no, I'm sorry, a burrito. It was
Okay,
the end of,
well,
it was
still.
the end of a burrito, and I bit down on it and cracked it. So when it was time for me to do this, I was like, I can't show my teeth because my tooth's gone. So it was cool. When he did do my character, I was like, yeah, I can't smile. Don't smile, Corinne. Just give him this.
Hilarious.
Right.
They got
Oh
the
my gosh.
eyebrows.
The
very
eyebrows,
nice.
my earrings, my little bun in the back. He did great.
So is it safe to say that you would be interested of going back to Coke?
I'm very interested. I would love to go back. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna continue to stay in touch with everyone that I met while I was there, and yeah.
And what advice do you have for future MBA interns if they want to go to Coke?
Stay curious, and make sure that when someone asks you, what do you think? It's perfectly fine to not agree with what someone else may have recommended, as long as you can back up why you think the way that you think, the way or whatever it is that you're recommending, make sure that you know your why, because Coke is not one of those companies where people want to hear you regurgitate something that they've already done. They want to innovate. They want something new. They want something different. Even with me creating the digital engagement plan, I created a plan for them through March of next year just so they could have it, which was great. But then also making sure that I was incorporating pieces into the plan that they had never thought of before. So don't be afraid to like shoot out an idea that you think is crazy, because 9 times out of 10 they will love it, and be confident in whatever it is that you bring to the table, because they want that's what they want. They want new, they want fresh, and they really want to be innovative, and they want to progress forward. So no idea is a crazy idea at Coca-Cola.
I love that. You sound like a Coke ambassador. You're ready for this. Hopefully one day.
Yeah.
Yes. And you, last but not least.
Mr. Nike. You know what? What was great was you did get some benefits, some perks at working at Nike, and that was some sort of, discounts that you were able to get and achieve. And so I definitely decked out my closet with some Nike stuff. I only had blazers going, low top blazers going into the internship. I've got some kill shots on right now. I've got some Metcons to work out with. I got some Air Max.
Which Metcons? I have like 3 here.
Metcon 9, girl. What I'm talking about? Hey, come on now.
Wow. Are we already on 9s? I have like 4 or 5, maybe 6.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
We got a lot of things. I did learn what heat was. I was cultured while I was there in Memphis, Tennessee. So very fortunate for that. But
can you explain to us really quickly what heat is for those of us that don't know?
Heat's like the style. It's the happening product right now. So like right now I've got kill shots on. Now granted, they're not, these are not what I would call heat. What I would call heat would be like, there was some, I think it was like, the term was wet cement, like AJ1s just came out or something like that. And so like, that's heat. That's the now, that's what's happening. I did not get any of those, unfortunately.
So you didn't purchase any heat, but you know what it is.
I know what I'm cultured now. I didn't purchase any, but
you know heat when you see it.
I know heat and that's the most important thing, right? Get educated. So the thing that I brought today that is near and dear to my heart is the Atlanta Braves. Mainly because Georgia Tech isn't sponsored by Nike, but that's a different story. But the Atlanta Braves are, and so we got a phenomenal Acuna Junior jersey. So official Nike jersey from them. And incredible opportunity. And when you get 40-50% off, girl, you're gonna get it. So I had that opportunity to kind of splurge in the Nike. In the Nike wheelhouse. So a lot of fun. They got an employee store over there too. So, I got my new Pegasus 41s right before they released. You got like a month before a new style that was coming out. So that was really cool. So yeah. And then
is Nike a place that you would want to go back to?
I loved Nike. Once again, the networking, they're very into storytelling. And a lot of that I think stems from how powerful of a brand they are, and how, when I talk about storytelling and networking, I mean that how like when we talk about which would probably be the follow-up question of like, what would you give advice for someone who comes to work there?
Yeah.
One, I definitely go back. That's for sure. We'll find out next month if they've got a head count and they're ready to go and whatnot. However, for students that want to apply to Nike, one of the first things they ask you is why Nike? Kind of what's your story behind Nike? Time and time again, meeting someone new, everyone had a very unique story about how Nike was incorporated in their life and how it was for them growing up, or kind of what the brand means to them. It could be anything from Jordan Brand to Converse to Nike. I mean, for me, growing up, I've got a twin brother and I have an older brother, so we played a bunch of sports growing up. Nike was a premier sports apparel that we had growing up. So I had some Nike Vaporflies when I was a kid playing football and whatnot. But now, as they've kind of shifted into the lifestyle brand, it's more more everyday wear as well. So even I've got some Jordan gear on right now. I got some Jordan t-shirt on right now. The original AJ1s right there.
It was such a pleasure having you all on the podcast today. Great to have you back. You're 2-timers now. Yeah. I think you're the first group of people I've interviewed twice, so that's very awesome. You should feel special. Third time. Maybe we'll do that twin episode we talked about. Fun fact, Trent and Janice are twins, so we may have to do that. Little spoiler alert.
Yeah. Shout out to my sister Jolie. Aww. If she's listening, probably not.
Yeah.
You go ahead, because now your brother's going to feel left out.
Shout out to Jared. We celebrate our 30th birthday on Monday, so got a party tonight, so have a good time.
We love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Intersection Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, please rate and subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and we're also on SoundCloud if you're there. So thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.